Hello and welcome to Gardening Australia. This week I'm coming to you from the iconic Royal Botanic Garden in Sydney. It's the beating green heart of Sydney's urban metropolis. And if you're anything like me, it's spaces like this where you're the happiest. We've got plenty of colour to fill your cup this week. Here's what's coming up.
There's no better joy than picking homegrown fruit from your garden. And you don't need a quarter-acre block or an orchard. I'm going to show you how to grow fruit in small spaces.
Does using gravel or broken bits of terracotta in the bottom of a pot increase drainage? The answer might surprise you.
I'm off to meet some teenagers who are finding that while good first jobs may not grow on trees, an urban farm is certainly a good place to look for one.
And I'm visiting a beautiful country garden, home to two very talented and resourceful gardeners who've made the most out of the dry conditions.
There's something special about a singular focus. You know, when someone gets obsessed with a particular plant and then becomes an expert in their own backyard. Well, Jerry's with a collector of a garden classic. And believe me, you're going to want to start growing your own once you feast your eyes on some of these beauties.
I'm in a southern suburb of Brisbane in a fairly ordinary suburban street, but lurking here is a special collection of rare plants that will send aficionados and casual fans alike dizzy with delight. This is the home of Sheldon McLeod. By day, he's a builder and building site supervisor, but every spare moment, his gardening passion is this: the group of epiphytic ferns known as elkhorns and staghorns. Oh my God, Sheldon.
Nice to meet you.
Aladdin's cave or what? How long have you been growing these?
Yeah, a long time. It started with my grandfather and my father. Go back, when I was a little youngster, around 2 to 3 years old. I've inherited a few plants from them and I'm still got them.
3 generations worth of ferns here. Yeah. That's pretty special. What drew you to elks and stags?
Just the beauty of them. I think they're absolutely beautiful. Like, just look at them.
The two species that would be most familiar to our viewers are staghorn, Platycerium superbum, and elkhorn, Platycerium bifurcatum. They're the most common Australian native species. When did you realise there was more than just elks and stags?
Yeah, probably go back 15, 20 years ago. I found out about a few other species that you can get, and it was just opened my eyes, like, wow, I've got to have those.
I'm just desperate to have a look at your range of plants.
I can't wait to
show you. Can you show me?
Yes, definitely, Jerry. Let's go.
You. His collection is across a normal suburban block of 1,000 square metres. Unsurprisingly, the garden is dripping with rare and exotic staghorns, most of which stretch the limits of believability with their abstract shapes.
This is one of my favourite, Platycerium andinum, the only native American staghorn. It's probably around 12 years old, this one. And she's at full maturity, lots of mature spore coming on this now. You can see it just falling off when you scratch it like that.
So they are.
So that's ready to go.
What a fantastic fountain of foliage.
Yeah, I think so too. She's extremely happy where she is. I don't move this one, and that's another thing with staghorns. If you get them in a spot that they love, you will know they'll just flourish. If you notice after a month or two they're not going so well, move it.
So what's the latest?
The latest craze at the moment are dwarfs. They're small, they're compact, they don't grow much bigger than that. That's called Jade Girl, Blinky-eyed Jade Girl. That's a really popular one overseas at the moment.
Now that the collection is well established, Sheldon is concentrating on crossbreeding and growing his own hybrids in his backyard nursery.
These 3 here are 3 I selected out of spore. Blinky-eyed Moonlight is the actual name of the mother plant.
These are yours?
Yes, they are. So I selected those out when they were really little. They're nice dwarfs. They have a lot of the white fur as well, so they can take a lot of direct light. And they're just the they stay so compact.
So how do you go about creating your own hybrids?
I mix the two spores, the two parent spores together, equal quantities of each spore, put them down on good quality moss, keep them lightly misted, and just hope for the best. When they get to, say, around 20-cent piece size, that's when I start to notice if they're different.
And you've got the eye for this, of course, haven't you?
I've grown enough of each type.
Yes.
Yeah. This is a hybrid I created, Platycerium imperatrix. This is a pup off the mother plant. It's a cross, a hybrid between Wallinkii Paul and Veitchii sunrays. It's got a distinct toothing around the shield edge, and it's really unique. There's not too many Platyceriums that do that. I don't think there's actually any that do that bar her. She's really white too. She gets it off the Veitchii. She can handle a lot of sun.
All Platycerium have the same distinctive growth form. Large shield fronds fan out over to anchor them to their growing surface and absorb moisture and nutrient, while protruding horn fronds are held aloft to catch sun and spread spores. But Sheldon's collection shows from this base there's many variations available. You've got some really interesting plants here. It looks like it's made from velvet.
It's a beautiful one, this one, Jerry. It's actually a hybrid of Platycerium andinum and Platycerium elephantotus. Its name is Antis. They get these massive, massive elephant ear-like shields, and the horns, they'll get a lot bigger than this because this is just a young plant. It's only 18 months old. There's a lot of little babies around the back here. I've just cut those out of the back, repot those and keep them moist and wet, and they take off and there's another plant.
It's a little treasure.
It's a little treasure. It's a beautiful one, I really love it.
So how many plants do you have in the collection, and how many different varieties do you have?
I'd probably have 50 to 100, I guess, different varieties of Platycerium in the larger size. In smaller size coming through, probably a couple of thousand.
This is pretty much how you would see them growing in the wild, wouldn't you?
Yeah, they love growing on trees like this. They're an epiphyte, so they don't hurt the tree. They just literally suck onto the tree. They just thrive. If you want to leave them go, and you can, and they'll just look after themselves. But personally, I fertilise every 3 weeks. I add that into the regime.
A liquid feed or a granular feed?
I'll look both. I use a slow release fertiliser, and these things are a treat. So you can load your slow release fertiliser into them, shut the little lid. You can see there's a little lid on them.
Yeah.
Shut that little lid up, and that just goes into the back of the plant. Push it into the root mass in the back. Every time you water, they're getting fertilised.
What sort of materials do you use to attach them to the trees?
The legs off pantyhose.
Oh, get away.
No.
That's one of my favourite ties.
Good, me too.
You must use a lot of pantyhose here, though.
I do use it. Yes, I go to the shop and buy them by like the 10 packs at a time and walk on out with 10 packs of pantyhose. I get a couple of looks, but hey, they work well.
There's a whole world of different species, hybrids and cultivars which collectors go nuts for. The scene is particularly strong in Malaysia and Japan.
I just love it so much, and I've always just grown all the new types and tried to get the new types to add to the collection. It's just sort of fallen on my lap. I'm trying to better it and get ahead. So.
And how did you come across all those plants?
Just friends. Got friends in Australia that are growing them as well.
Do you sell any of your plants?
Yeah, I do. Ones that are popular at the moment, definitely Ridleyi, Madagascarens, and certain types of Veitchii too. The overseas market just absolutely love Veitchii from Australia. So, yeah, we're just working on getting the right certificates in place right now so we can start exporting them overseas and grow the business. It's exciting times.
And Sheldon certainly isn't slowing down. He sees his future in these incredible plants.
Asia is at least 10 years ahead of us, and I want to catch that up for Australia. A lot of Australians don't have any idea what is out there with Platyceriums. They've never seen any of these. So I just want to really push the awareness out there. I also want to improve the drought tolerance. A lot of them can't tolerate the direct sun, so I want to also hybridise a few of the stronger, sun-tolerant staghorns into a lot of these and make them, available for everyone, and they can put them on a tree anywhere. And lastly, I just want people to love these as much as what I do. They are a beautiful plant. So that's my goal.
And Sheldon will be back later in the show to share some of his more unusual techniques for displaying these distinctive beauties.
What's the best waratah to grow in a warmer climate? Well, believe it or not, Queensland have their own waratah, Haloxylon flammeum, the tree waratah. It's a rainforest tree from North Queensland up on the Atherton tablelands. A beautiful red flower through spring and summer. Looks a little bit like a waratah, but not really. But it is an absolutely stunning tree, and it will grow as far south as Melbourne because it will tolerate a light frost. So give it a go, Haloxylon flammeum.
Why are my potatoes in the garden bed turning green? Green spuds in the veggie patch is an indication that the tubers are being exposed to sunlight. Basically, they're producing chlorophyll and going green, but they'll also be producing a compound called solanine, which is a digestive irritant. It can give you a sore stomach if eaten. So don't eat green potatoes. They can be used as seed potatoes to plant out elsewhere in your garden. Now, the potatoes on those plants deeper down in the dark will be fine. But to keep them all covered up and smothered, top dress with compost and straw or mulch, and they'll be tasty and safe to eat.
What is silt? You'll often hear about sandy or clay soils, but there's a third type, silt. Like the other two, it's mostly made of rock, broken down into particles that are smaller than grains of sand, but larger than particles of clay. Silty soils have a silky or slippery texture when wet, a bit like wet flour. If it drains well, they can be great for fruit and veg growing as they retain moisture well. But a really high silt content can mean soils are prone to erosion, drain poorly when very wet, and difficult to get water into once they've dried out.
There really is nothing better than biting into a homegrown piece of fruit. Shop-bought just doesn't taste the same. Well, if you think that that juicy experience is only reserved for people with large gardens, Jane will have you thinking again.
Growing fruit is such a rewarding experience, but it's not just about picking delectable produce. Fruit trees and vines can provide shade, create privacy, and not to mention they look great, making a wonderful addition to any garden, including a small one. So I'm going to show you how to grow fruit, no matter how restricted you are with space. All you need is a sunny spot and good rich soil. One solution to growing fruit trees if you lack space is to grow espaliered fruit trees. This centuries-old technique involves growing a tree that's on a flat plane. It's growing up and lateral rather than out. And it's a terrific way to grow trees in a small space. You can grow many, many types of fruit trees. Quinces, stone fruits, and things like this pear and the apple tree. The key to maintaining the shape and vigour of these fruit trees is careful and timely pruning. This pear tree has been cut back recently so that it hugs the framework. I'm going to show you how to prune this rather overgrown apple tree. You can see these stems here are trying to grow outwards. They're not adhering to the idea of growing up or sideways. They're not sticking to the framework. What I'm going to do is prune back to that fruiting spur there, or if there's no fruiting spur, you just count 1, 2, 3, about finger's length up, and cut back down to that point just there. So by doing that, you're going to direct the energy into producing fruit rather than just long growth. Because by leaving that on the tree, all you're going to get is very little fruit, if any at all. So give it a good cut back and you're sure to end up with some fruit. I've left this one branch so that I can tie it up just using some string, and tie it up not too tightly. You don't have it right up against the branch, just let a little bit of movement happen. So there you have it. That apple tree now looks like it's really going to grow beautifully and produce marvellous fruit for years to come. There are other fruit trees that do well as hedges. These feijoas not only look good, but they work really well as a low-maintenance evergreen hedge that respond well to pruning. You can plant them close together, about ½ metre apart. The additional benefit is that they do have these lovely flowers, which turn into fantastic fruit like this. This is a young one, you let it grow much longer and it gets to be the size of an egg, and that's when you can pick them and eat them. They make marvellous jellies and jams and for cakes. Terrific plant, the feijoas. If you're in a temperate climate, what better way to add some fruit and some shade during summer months than by planting a deciduous fruiting vine, like a grapevine. And in winter, you'll find that the leaves will have dropped and you'll get that lovely winter sun seeping through. This grapevine works beautifully with this solidly built pergola to support the heavy plant. If you have a structure that's smaller and simpler, like this archway, you can easily grow a fruiting vine on it. This fast-growing berry is growing beautifully from this wooden container. This small, smooth-skinned kiwi berry is equally as delicious as its relative, the kiwi fruit. In fact, when you cut it open, it looks the same, but it's just something a little bit different. One of the simplest ways to grow a fruit tree is in a pot. And there's so many different kinds of miniature fruit trees that quite happily grow in pots, from nectarines right the way through to citrus. Even figs and pomegranates can be grown in pots if they're pruned regularly to control their size. This lemon tree is doing really well, and in this enormously ginormous pot, you'd find that a dwarf lemon tree would do just as well in half the size. One plant that grows really readily in a pot is a blueberry. Now start off with the pot that's a good size that blueberry, its roots will fill it adequately. It's going to be in about 2 years. You'll have to change that to a much bigger pot. But in the meantime, this will be fine. Next, choose a good quality potting mix, one that has been specially blended for acidic-loving plants, things like blueberries and azaleas and rhododendrons. They need a pH of between 4 and 5. It's quite important you do that. If you can't find a suitable blend, well, use some sulphur granules mixed into a premium blend of potting mix. That will be just fine. When choosing your blueberry, choose a self-pollinating variety or put 2 different varieties near each other so that they pollinate and fruit well. That's quite important. Then you need to give it some slow-release fertiliser at the time when it's flowering. That would be a great idea. And to finish off this one, just put some mulch around it, keep it well watered over the growing season, summer, and then you'll end up with some lovely, plump, sweet blueberries. So no matter how small or awkward your garden space is, there is always a suitable fruit and a suitable way to get successful fruits to happen. So get fruititious, get growing.
You've probably heard that putting gravel or broken bits of terracotta in the bottom of a pot will increase its drainage. But is this really true? Now we know that plants need good drainage, and this helps their roots receive adequate oxygen. We also know that water passes through coarse textured material faster than it does fine material. It all makes sense, but let's look into it a bit further. About 100 years ago, soil scientists demonstrated that water does not move freely between layers of fine textured material to more coarse textures. Rather than water freely trickling down between the layers, water resists crossing it. That's because the water molecules themselves exhibit a tension that will cause them to cling to the greater surface area of the finer particles, rather than passing through to the coarser terracotta or gravel. This tension offsets the downward pull of gravity and prevents water passing down. Instead, water builds up in the finer level above and is only released into the coarser layer below when it's saturated, like a full sponge that can't hold any more water. This can cause waterlogging. If you have gravel at the bottom of your pots, this brings a waterlogged soil closer to the roots, which can lead to root rot. Also, the coarser the material, the more difficult it is for water to move down across the interface and out through the drainage hole. So using gravel or broken bits of terracotta in the bottom of your pot will not improve drainage. Also, don't plug the holes as this will interfere with drainage. When you put the potting mix in, it will eventually settle and compact, and generally nothing will come out. If you're worried about the media coming out of large drainage holes, then a piece of geotextile or fly screen will do the trick. So keep it simple. No gravel or broken bits of terracotta needed. Your pots will drain better without it.
I'm in Melbourne's eastern suburbs, and if I'm taking you to explore a shopping centre, you can be sure it's not your average shopping centre. Burwood Brickworks is a complex that's designed with sustainability as its focus. It still has lots of your usual shopping centre type things, but the cherry on top for me is perched quite literally on top. On the roof, surrounded by new apartment blocks, is an urban farm, cranking out produce in the heart of suburbia.
Yeah, we've got a communal hub up here, which is just like members of the local community can literally come up, pick some salad greens for their dinner and walk back home. Like, it's awesome, it's amazing. I wish this was in every single community.
Keris works for Cultivating Community, the organisation tasked with running this farm, but she also works in community gardens all over Melbourne. The name Cultivating Community suggests that you're growing a lot more than just veggies here on the rooftop.
Building community, it's amazing. So one of our big things is working with culturally and linguistically diverse people. We run our Hear Me, See Me, Employ Me program out of here, which is a beautiful partnership we've got with Victorian College for the Deaf, and it's a work experience program.
Hear Me, See Me, Employ Me gives young people who are deaf and hard of hearing a chance to learn gardening skills during an internship while they're still at school, then apply for jobs as paid maintenance gardeners. Two of the program's recent graduates, Musti and Wisnu, are now employed to help keep the farm cranking out produce. So what are we harvesting here today?
We're harvesting zucchini today, and
how did he actually sign zucchini?
It's Z and also the shape of the vegetable as well.
So sort of like Z tube.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, here's one. What else are you harvesting up there, Musti?
Red lettuce.
Oh, yeah, nice. Redhead. Wiz, how did you get involved with the program?
So I started studying at VCD. Like, we learnt a few things, like you normally do literacy and math, that sort of a thing. And then I did a specialty course on Thursdays. Now I've graduated and I applied for a job and I've received one here. So I'll be working as a casual next year and I'll be working part-time. So that's very exciting.
Generally speaking, it's hard for young people to find their first job. Is it harder for young people who are deaf, do you think?
Yeah, I do think so. I think when a hearing person goes for a job, they can communicate quite easily, but when a deaf person applies for a job, they need to book an interpreter and they need to think of all of these additional barriers that they need to get through. So yes. And it's given me a lot of experience about the workplace and taught me a lot of different skills involved with irrigation and setting up a garden, also looking after the soil, all sorts of things.
What are your favourite tools?
My favourite, the broad fox. backpack spraying.
Do you like this type of work that you do on the farm?
Yes, it's because it is best work experience. Yeah.
Now, this is your first job. Is it a forever job?
No, it was short time, and I want to be the barber.
When I think about my first job as a teenager, it was actually working in a supermarket on a Thursday night and Saturday morning, heating up and handing out food samples. But it taught me a lot. I had to be right place, right time, work in a team environment, and it gave me the confidence and skills to communicate with all sorts of people. And when you think about it, if you don't have the chance to develop those skills as a teenager, it's only going to become more difficult later in life to get a job. You just need a break. You just need a start, that first.
The opportunity, you know, that's what I believe this program offers. It's an opportunity for deaf and hard of hearing people to build their employability skills and then take it off to work in other organisations, or maybe even with us, who knows.
So where does all this incredible produce that you're growing here end up?
So everything here goes into our food insecurity projects that we run as an organisation. Local community groups can get accessible produce and then they either give it away for free or charge community a gold coin donation, which is amazing. It gets into the hands of people that need it, which is just the perfect outcome.
Still to come on Gardening Australia, Millie lets us in on one of her favourite plants.
Now, when this is in flower, I think it's like the biggest one-stop shop for so many animal species, in particular insects.
Jerry gets some expert advice on some staggering classics. And we meet an environmental scientist and entomologist turning the cards on pests. Next, we've got Sophie Thompson in a beautiful dry climate country garden. Check. A passion project of a retired garden designer. Check. And a story that I'd like to see right now. Check.
I'm not far from one of the prettiest towns in South Australia, the charming historical Strathalbyn, about an hour southeast of Adelaide. It's here, on this 5-acre property, that retired garden designer Diana McGregor lives with her talented husband Michael. After spending years designing other people's gardens, for the past decade, Diana has been focused on creating her own space. And I can't wait to explore it.
It's a country-style garden. The entry is formal, and there are some areas of formality around the house. And it's simple. I wanted it to be very simple.
And what was here when you came?
Hideous place. It was just a total mess. There was no garden at all. It was terrible.
You were a professional garden designer.
Yeah.
What was it like designing your own garden from scratch? No pressure.
No. Well, the worst thing was it was so bad, but I knew that we were in our 60s and we were going to have to do it all ourselves. Whereas, you know, you do a garden for somebody, you've got contractors who come in and it's all done. But it just happened easily because, you know, I come up with an idea and Michael says, no. And I say, yeah, it's fine. It'll be fine. And he works it out and does it.
I love the way your stairs look, but even more importantly, I love the way they feel to walk down. That's not by accident, is it?
No, it's not. No, we are very fussy about steps because they can be really dangerous or they can be really comfortable. And this is Diana's strict instructions to me that they have to be exactly 160 mils high and exactly 350 mils deep. And each step needs to be identical because your brain calculates how far your foot needs to go down, and if it's exactly 160 mils, it just feels right.
You and Diana make an amazing team in the garden. How does that partnership work?
Well, she's really the creative part of the team. So she comes up with sometimes what I think are crazy ideas, like excavating this whole area to make it level. When she first suggested it, I went, no way, we're not doing, that's ridiculous. And then I start thinking about it, and she'll say things like, oh, but you can do it, you know, you're good at that sort of thing. I just don't know how we're going to do it. And then about a week later, it's, look, maybe if we did this. So my job really is to take her grand designs and work out how on earth I can manage to build it.
As the labourer?
As the labourer, yes. That's generally the role that I have played throughout our entire marriage. She's the brains and I'm the muscle.
So tell me about this front area.
This was very deliberately designed so that I got a stone wall, because Michael is very good at building stone walls.
The attention to detail in them is
stunning.
extraordinary.
Yeah. And the very sharp edges and things. And then the coping on the top just finishes them off so that, you know, they match into the steps. I love them. I just think the walls are beautiful. And then, because we have a dirt road, we had to be protected from all the dust. And so the trees went in first, because I wanted sort of an avenue of trees across the front of the house to just protect us a little bit.
So the trees are Acer Sensation,
Yes.
which is a wonderful
Yes.
deciduous tree.
Yes.
Beautiful pinkish growth in spring and lovely autumn colour.
Yes.
And incredibly hardy.
Oh, they don't look back. You put them here, they don't mind our dreadful harsh north winds.
So then you've layered down in height. I noticed that you've been quite specific in your colour combinations too.
I'm crazy about blue. I also thought that the blue goes nicely with the colour of the house. I think hot colours are spectacular in some places, but because I wanted a calm garden, it can't be hot colours. But it also suits the countryside that we're going out towards as well.
No country garden would be complete without its productive patch. This area is Michael's domain. What have you got growing here?
So my zucchinis,
Yep.
my button squash, and this is my permanent bed with the asparagus and with the rhubarb and tomatoes.
Beautiful. Can I say, Michael, as much as I love a good veggie patch, the thing that really draws my eye is these amazing gabion cages.
Well, I had to do something because this was just an earth bank, and any form of retaining is almost 90 metres all the way around. I couldn't afford. The guys who did the landscaping kept the rock for me, so all the rocks you see came off this block when we excavated. Then it was just a question of placing them in. All the flat faces I just kept separate to the others, used the flat faces on the front. It's like crazy paving on a vertical scale. Building walls has been my hobby now for 30 years. I enjoy nothing more. It's like doing large jigsaw puzzles in heavy materials. It's a satisfaction of just building things.
A labour of love, but so worth it.
This part of the garden is one of my favourite places of the world. And I come down and I talk to the girls in the chook yard.
They're great listeners, aren't they?
They are indeed.
Closer to the house, the garden's got a much more formal feel because you've used these hedges. What was the purpose?
We can sometimes get quite a strong wind from the south, but it's the north wind that's a problem. And so I thought, if I want to have any pretty plants at all, I'm going to have to protect them.
Okay.
So really the hedges are to protect the planting.
It looks beautiful, lovely backdrop for your looser plantings within.
Yeah.
But I am fascinated by your use of what's a really common, hardy old plant, Abelia, and keeping it low and tight.
Yes.
How much work is involved in keeping it like this?
Not a huge amount, strangely. It needs a really, really severe prune, just as we're coming into the beginning of summer. In the winter, it gets a little bit shaggy, it gets a bit wide. There are a few of these little tips that grow up, so it might need a little tiny trim every now and then just a tidy up at the end of the summer. So not everything has gone to plan here. I did plant in the blue and apricot as per plan, but then the salvias decided to do their own thing. And the first thing they produced was this purple, and I thought, that's okay. And then they've moved through to pinks, and I thought, not sure about this, but it's actually different and it's pretty to look at.
It's sort of a chaos of colour, really, isn't it? It's beautiful.
So I really don't mind. It can keep doing its own thing.
And these salvias would be loved by honey-eating birds, but I can see the honeybees are loving them, and there's even some blue-banded bees.
Yes. I love it when I see the blue-banded bees come. That's lovely.
Sometimes when we look at the old photographs and we see where we started and where we've got to, it's almost unbelievable. It's almost like watching a fiction. We often sit out on the veranda, and it's the most fantastic feeling to have created a really beautiful space like this.
It's everything I wanted. There are times of the day where parts of it look just so beautiful. So it's been worth it.
Have a look at this pak choi. It's bolted, which means it's raced to flower before it's had a chance to reach its full potential. Now, this can happen to annual veggies and herbs when they get stressed. In this case, I planted these as seedlings that really were a little bit over mature, and it would have got transplant shock, which means they've bolted. Now, to reduce the chance of your veggies bolting, where possible, grow from seed, direct sown into the soil, and choose varieties that are well suited to your soil type and climate. If you are going to plant seedlings, plant them before they get too mature, again to reduce transplant shock, and make sure they're well watered and regularly fed to really help them move along.
I want to talk to you about this. It is one of my absolute favourite Australian plants, and I reckon it's one of the most humble of heroes in the landscape. This is Bosseria spinosa, and you've probably driven past it on the edge of a freeway, even walked past it in the bush. In a lot of cases, it's a very nondescript plant. You wouldn't even notice it, but it is one of the most magical plants I know. Now, when this is in flower, I think it's like the biggest one-stop shop for so many animal species, in particular insects. I promise, if you stop and stare at a Bosseria in flower, you can be there for hours. It is incredible how many species actually rely on it. In particular, it is critical for many butterfly species, including some rare and threatened ones. They come in, of course, to feed on the nectar of the flowers, but the adults lay their eggs exclusively on this plant. When the larvae emerge, they actually exist down on the roots of the plant. They're hidden underground, which protects them from predatory birds. Those butterfly larvae have a relationship with a particular ant species, which protects them from being attacked. They guide them up into the canopy of this plant at night time to feed under the cover of darkness. And when daytime comes, they guide them back down to be safely burrowed down in the ground. What do the ants get for it? Well, this is nature. They feed off a sticky excrement that comes out of the larvae. It's like sugar, and it's a really important food for them. But recently, I discovered something even more amazing. The foliage actually contains a chemical which, if you strip it off, be careful, it's covered in thorns, and chop it up, you can see this chemical. So all you need to do is add some boiling water. You can see straight away that chemical is starting to be released into the water. It's called esculin, and it actually absorbs UV light, which is blue. And so you see the water starts to turn blue. It's absorbing the UV light from the sun, and over time it will get even darker. This is one that I doused about half an hour ago, and you can see more of the chemical is leached into the water, and you get an incredible effect. This ability to absorb UV light has even seen esculin from Bosseria used as an ingredient in sunscreen. I love this plant so much. It is so humble, just a green shrub in the landscape. But it has all of these incredible secrets, and it reminds me that there is so much that we don't know about the plants in our gardens and in our natural landscapes, and there is always something to learn.
I think I'm ready for some more of our earliest story on that stunning Staghorn collection. Jerry's back with some insider advice on how you can grow these incredible epiphytes.
I'm back with Sheldon McLeod and his extraordinary collection of Staghorn and Elkhorn ferns. After raising his Ridley-eye from spores, he shows us how to nurture them to their next growth stage.
Okay, this is the 100mm plant size. What we're going to do, we're going to mount it into this shield using a moss, good quality moss. Tucked it in there like that. Fill that cup up. Now these, just give them a bit of a squeeze around the outside. Out they come. Probably have to lose a bit off there and grab out the tag. Now I'm going to squeeze this down like that. Push this in behind. All right. Give it a good water in. It can stay on that mount for 12 to 18 months. And then from there, the root mass will grow right into this pouch in the front. So you'll have all your roots come out of that 100mm pot size root ball and come right out into this. And then it's so simple later on when they're bigger to just slide that whole root mass back out again and just a couple of stocking legs around this, a little bit more moss on the back of it and mount it onto a tree. And it'll just take off. Beautiful.
And in a few years, you too could have something as spectacular as this.
Jerry, this is Ridley-eye wide form. It was found by a guy in Thailand. I was lucky enough to get some spore a few years ago and put it down, and yeah, this is probably around 3 to 4 years old, this plant.
It is distinctly different from any other that I've seen.
Yeah, it's very different. It's got that wrinkled shield, and there it's spore patches. It's got a distinct little spore cap.
One other thing I must say about this is it's portable.
In our climate here, southeast Queensland, it gets cool, so I don't want to lose them, so I bring them inside, and you can easily move them when they're in bowls inside.
How do you succeed with them?
For a start, it's the right lighting. If you can get good quality grow lights, makes a hell of a difference. You can supplement, so if they're getting a little bit of light coming through the window, that adds to it, so you don't need as many globes. I keep these on for probably 8 hours a day, so just when I come out in the morning, switch them on. At night, about 6 o'clock, switch them off. We have a few Ridley-eye here. These two side ones at the ends, they're wide form. And the one in the middle, these two here, they're dwarf forms of Ridley-eye. A southern form and the northern form from Thailand.
What about temperature? Do you use room heaters? Do they accept air conditioning?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they love that. They love that, mate. Like, they're pretty hardy. You don't need to. I don't even worry up here with those temperatures or anything like that. I just supplement lighting. In winter, obviously, your house is warmer inside your house, and that's just enough. It might be, say, 7, 8 degrees outside, but inside it'll be 12 degrees. And they can tolerate that temperatures easily down to 10. So yeah, they just love it indoors under lights.
Any risk of killing them with kindness? Too much food, too much water?
Too much water. Too much water. Definitely too much water. Most staghorns, people think they just got to be wet all the time. No, they love drying out. So keep that in mind with any staghorn. Let them dry out between waters. There's a little tiny spot here in the centre. I just feel that little gap there just to make sure that moss is dryish. And that's where I know they're ready for a water, and you water them right in the centre here. Because they hug onto those bowls and there's not that much space there.
So that's important, right in the centre.
They seem to leave a little spot there. You'll notice on that one over there, it's got the same little spot. It's like a gap in the shields where the shields come through. You can just water these like you would outdoors. You know, once every, say, 2 weeks would be fine. To 3 weeks, I'd probably do 3 waters of nutrients, and then I might go 1 water with water, straight rainwater. So you've got to do that flush and to wash that nutrient out.
So seaweed would be acceptable for them?
Yeah, that's acceptable for them.
Well, I have to say they're looking absolutely splendid. They're a credit to you. And
thank you.
I hope people out there will be able to succeed as well as you have. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
This week marked the International Day of Plant Health, which is so important for preserving our precious natural heritage. Every day, expert scientists around the country are working hard to protect our incredibly diverse flora. Our next story is with someone doing just that.
The light bulb moment when I decided I'm going to be a scientist was when my teacher, biology teacher, said that cats landed on their feet. I had a cat called Tabby and I was like, can't wait to get home. My brother opened the window and I let go of her legs. So the science of cats is that they can churn their bodies 180 degrees. So as Tabby was let go, first thing she did was turn her head, could see the ground, then she turned her front paws, then her back paws, and landed softly on the ground. Didn't see her for a day or two, but by then I was like, I'm going to be a scientist. My name is Carol Quashy-Williams. I'm an agricultural and environmental scientist and entomologist, which is the study of bugs. Caterpillars, look.
Wow, look at the caterpillars. 1,000 caterpillars.
And I'm passionate about passing skills in science, technology, engineering and maths, or STEM, to students. I'm from Eastville in Bristol, in England. My grandfather in Jamaica was a farmer, and the thought of growing produce, agriculture, in a sustainable way and looking after the environment, I was like very passionate about that. So at uni, I went to Newcastle Uni. We talked about the fact that 90% of a crop could be lost from the time you put it in the ground to when you harvest it, especially from insects. I ended up going to Samoa and managing a fruit fly project, and I met my husband playing soccer, and he just happened to be an Aussie, an Australian, and he was working over there as an expat who happened to live in Canberra. Where I live in Canberra is a suburb called Farrer, named after William James Farrer, who was a famous agriculturalist. So I remember thinking, this is clearly the suburb for me, and I love the fact that we've got nature all around us. You wouldn't know that you're actually in the middle of the capital city. I started working or helping at Farrer Primary School in 2005 when my son was in year 1. So I've got a son and a daughter. My daughter's the younger one. When she was getting ready to leave in year 6, Farrer was happy for me to continue working with the teachers, and so I joined the STEM Professionals in Schools programme. So I've been connected to Farrer for almost 20 years now, and on their website they call me their scientist in residence, which is really lovely. And when I did 10 years, they revealed a mosaic that they'd made for me. My two main schools are Farrer and Namadgi. Namadgi is like the largest Stephanie Alexander kitchen garden in Canberra. We've got 4 massive gardens. I visit once a fortnight. We go into the field and we'll look at what's growing. We start the children off growing the seeds, tending the plants, harvesting the produce, trying the produce fresh, and also getting to cook with the produce. And then any waste is then composted. That becomes great compost, which is then returned to the plants, to the fields, where we can then grow. So they get to see the whole cycle, which is like awesome. Just crumbly, perfect, just a more mature compost and all the worms. So this is just right to go onto a garden. So I've taught them that we do the crop rotations to reduce pest and disease incidents and also to add nutrients to the gardens. Our results from the show. Yeah. Did anyone go to the show this weekend?
I wanted to, but I didn't get to.
Oh, OK. We're entering produce into the Canberra show. It's the 4th year that we've won.
Champions!
We'd never won Best in Show ribbons. This is the first time we've got Best in Show. So have you seen our apples over there?
Yeah.
So that one is the best fruit.
That looks really
So
good.
even the open session, so the adults couldn't produce something as good as what Namadgi did.
Oh, yeah.
So this morning we harvest our peaches, and we're going to cut these open and have a look at the beautiful flesh inside.
One year we were collecting peaches because we were going to be making peach jam. One of the students said to the teacher, "Oh, miss, there's maggots in this fruit." And I said to the teacher, "Hey, look, you know, living things, life cycle, part of the curriculum. Next week we'll have pupae, and the week after we should have the adults emerging." We went online and we had a look at how to identify fruit fly, and we thought, oh, it looks like Queensland fruit fly. That was the beginning of the Queensland fruit fly moving further south. Every 4 years, they have a fruit fly symposium. So I wrote a paper about inspiring the next generation of fruit fly entomologists, and the paper got accepted, and I went to Mexico, and I won a prize for best presentation. And I came back and I said to the kids, "Hey, look, because of you, I won this prize." So a past student who was in that fruit fly rearing class is now an agronomist. So I like to think that, it was all because of those manky peaches or maggoty peaches that got him on his path. I currently work at the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry. One of the projects I'd been doing at the department had been looking at our top 40 national priority plant pests. So I thought maybe it could be a STEM project. We could actually produce a card pack where we'd have 52 cards, a different pest on every card. Each of the kids will have a national priority plant pest, and they'll get to investigate this pest and find out how many countries a pest is in, what do they feed on. You can play a game with the stats on the cards, which is a good way to quickly learn which are the worst pests.
I have energy, which is 246.9.
And then the following year, it was the International Year of Fruit and Vegetables. And I thought, let's make art, let's make it a STEM project, and we'll get the kids drawing all these fruit and vegetables. We did fruit flies in 2022, and those cards were given out at the National Symposium of Fruit Flies. Last year we worked on butterflies and moths cards. We're getting those produced probably this year. What can you find? I saw some pear slugs. Have a look. See if you can find anything. So they've made this damage. Oh, what have you found? And one of my teachers said to me when she was growing up, all the scientists she knew were like old white guys in lab coats. So to have a woman, someone of cultural and linguistically diverse background, is inspiring for children. I hope that in the future there'll be children who go, "Oh, remember that lady who taught us all about science?" And we'd be in the garden and she'd tell us what bugs these were. So I'm hoping that will inspire them to become an entomologist. That's my plan. I'm always saying to kids, maybe this will be my next generation of entos.
Don't take your foot off the pedal just yet. Your jobs for the weekend are here, and it's full steam ahead. Cool temperate gardeners, it's time to tidy up daggy dahlias by removing finished foliage and scraggy stems. If your soil's well drained, leave tubers in the ground, otherwise lift and store. Bring a splash of colour and a dash of history to your veggie patch with red Russian kale. This heirloom tastes as good as it looks. Celebrate Biological Diversity Day by planting some local native grasses and ground covers, like the beautiful native violet, to encourage beneficial insects. In warm temperate gardens, divide clumps of sorrel using a sharp spade. Before replanting divisions, ensure that each section has a good intact root system and a couple of healthy leaves. Fill gaps in your flower patch by popping in perennials to improve your bedding display. Look for variations in texture and height and plant for colour throughout all seasons. Bring biodiversity to your backyard and find a spot for a nesting box. Many bats and birds rely on tree hollows, so a well-placed nest box can make a huge difference in urban areas. In the subtropics, find a sunny spot for a feijoa. These small, tough evergreens are great in pots or pruned short, producing fragrant summer flowers, followed by sweet autumn fruits. Keep an eye out for scale on citrus. Often transported by ants, these sapsuckers can quickly kill trees, so treat regularly with white oil first thing in the morning. Remember, not every bug is a baddie. Gardens are ecosystems, and while it's important to recognise pests and problems, grab a good ID book and get to know the good guys as well. In tropical gardens, if edible annuals have bolted and started to flower, leave them be. Flowering herbs and veg are bee beacons, and once flowering is finished, seeds can be collected, stored or re-sown. If you've got a sunny spot inside, then you've got the perfect spot to grow microgreens. A bit like a cross between sprouts and salad greens, they're tasty, healthy and dead easy to grow. For a tough turf, try Zoysia macrantha. This ace Australian native grass loves the tropics, is drought, salt and heat tolerant, has lower water needs and looks great. What's not to love? Arid gardeners, watch those winds. Install shade cloth as a windbreak, and when warm windy days are predicted, give vulnerable young plants a drink first thing in the morning. It also pays to keep an eye on citrus trees, especially those in pots. Being shallow-rooted, citrus can dry out fast, so ensure they're regularly watered to prevent the skin splitting. Invest in an emu bush, Eremophila nivea. These stunning small shrubs with their beautiful silver foliage and purple flowers are fabulous in gardens and increasingly rare in the wild. Have a wonderful weekend in the great outdoors and enjoy the awesome autumn weather. If you can't get enough of this wonderful GA stuff, head on over to our YouTube channel, packed with tips, tricks and inspiring segments guaranteed to get you gardening. Well, that's it for another week, gardeners. But wait till you see what we've got for you on our next show. Millie whips things into shape this autumn.
I've come to Warramate country, catch up with some old friends, to hear their stories and to help out with Mob working on country.
And I'm taking a closer look at some Tassie native plants here in the Royal Tasmanian Botanical Gardens.
There's nothing more iconic than Huon pine, Hannah. I mean, it's an endemic, only occurs in Tasmania. It's an incredible, incredible tree.